Welcome back, everyone. You're coming in the lobby. Hey, real quick, as you come back to church from all over the church, I got a little helper here real quick. Can you give my daughter and one of our dogs a round of applause as they come out here? Come on out here, Zeta. Bring that little Frenchie. All right, this is Adeline. This is one of our puppies. And Zeta, can you tell her to sit? Okay. Can you show her what else? Okay, everybody, watch this trick. Okay. Can you? Well, no, she didn't move. Okay. Now make her maybe shake. You know what I mean? Okay, she shakes. Okay. Let's do the other one. Fist bump. Okay, that's a new one. All right, well, Zeta, can you give her a treat? She obviously needs some food. She looks like she's a lightweight. So this dog, just so you know, is an amazing little creature that God has built her this way, don't you think? And my kids love this dog. She's a sweetheart. And the truth is this. The reason why she's so fat is because God made her that way. But also, she eats whatever's left over in the garage that the cats don't eat, including mice or food. So she's an amazing little puppy. Her breath smells like trash. Can you take her out of here, Zeta? And can you give this little amazing dog and my daughter a round of applause for being here? And Danielle, could you help her bring that animal back to the office so it's just not running all over the church? But, to be honest with you, if you're watching online, Addie knows a lot of tricks, and but she's not really trained. She knows some tricks. She knows fist bump. She knows, but she's not trained. She's got to be developed, and there's a difference between tricks and training. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today because Jesus developed people. And before we go any further, I want to just say, hey, it's really good to be home with you all today. I got a picture. I don't want to talk through everything, but thousands of people have come to know the Lord. Over 60,000 people were rescued literally from poverty. I gave away thousands of dollars to the Salvation Army each night on a local level. I was able to lead tour church with Toby Mack and Crowder on Sundays and just be able to walk with people on a bus and see some amazing things from venue staff. I led 2 or 3 people to the Lord just at a venue, just a security guard that was there that night. And this is a picture of me in the middle of the Target Center with 12,000 other people. And to be honest, that was fun. It was. But this is deep. And there's a difference. And if someone ever gets to that spot, great. I don't really care. I just want us to be healthy. But I'd trade these arenas 10 times out of 10 to be here with you. And it's amazing. So that's what I've been up to. But let me talk a little bit about today, developing people. Mark 1, 16 through 19. There are other places in the Gospels that you can go, but we'll just start in Mark because it's easy. We're also reading through Mark in our Lent calendar. Those of you who do not have that calendar, you can get that on our social media, on our website. I mapped out literally moving all the way to Easter. You can catch up, start up, whatever the case is. Read with me Mark 1, 16 through 19. You know what? I'm just going to read it right here. Or you can read it on the screen. Let's read it together. Jesus calls his first disciples. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting nets into the lake, for they were fishermen. Underline for they were fishermen. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once, underline at once in your Bible or highlight it in your phone. At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat, another set of disciples. And they were preparing their nets. To prepare their nets would be to assume that they're also fishing. Without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat. Underline, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. God, I just ask as we look at one of our values as a church in developing people that we would see how you see people. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's talk about some Christians in America. I think Christians in America know a few tricks, to be honest. I've lived that way in my life. I know a few tricks, but not everyone's trained. Does that make sense? We know what prayers to pray. We know what songs are on the radio. We know how to act when we're supposed to act, but there's not a lot of training. Like my son Xavier, when it comes to my boys learning an instrument. You know there's a big difference between trying and training to learn the piano? Have any of you tried to learn how to play the piano? Okay, so you tried, and you might not be able to see this online, but you tried, and then the sum total of your musical talent over months of practice or trying is this. You're like, I'm done. I tried. But if you train to play the piano, you are in a recital and you play something at a whole nother skill level. There's a difference between tricks and training. And you can't really train your way, okay? I'll say it right here. You can't try your way to following Jesus. You can't try it with your life that's going to show the character and the competencies of Christ. You can't try your way there. You have to train your way there. Does that make sense? So let's talk a little bit about Summit real quick. If we're going to stay at, the base of the mountain, and many of you have seen glimpses of the new sort of logo and what that means and what that is, but if we're going to have glimpses of the mountain, if we're going to stay at the base of the mountain, I would say that at that place, you're going to find a lot of programs for people. We get more programs. All we need is more programs. We need more programs for adults, more programs for kids. We need programs on Wednesday nights, Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and we got people that got to do all these programs. And that's sort of like, base mountain sort of thinking. We measure things differently too, of addition. So if we keep adding to services and numerically we incrementally increase, this is kind of base mountain thinking. And then maybe teaching. Maybe we really focus on just teaching, just gathering around a fire, but never taking that fire anywhere. That's where I think a lot of churches get stuck. And that, I would say in our metaphor at Summit, maybe would be the base of the mountain or the lower room. But there's more. There's an upper room. There's a summit. And in that place, it's usually people, not programs. I mean, the programs make the people, it makes it go, if that makes sense. Like the program that's happening allows people to connect, but it's about people, not the programs. It's about multiplication, not addition. It's about that duplication, if you will. It's about training. So let's talk about these three ways to sort of develop people as a little bit of foundation before we get to our text. Is that okay? Okay, great. I'm glad you all agreed so exuberantly. I love when it comes to people, the master plan of evangelism. Robert Coleman says this, that it's a 4-word phrase. Robert Coleman is coined in saying this. I love this when he's talking about people, he's talking about Jesus. Men or people were his method. When we're talking about developing people, Jesus used people, not programs. People were his method. This is where it all makes sense. Now, the discipleship programs, like I said, can be valuable environments, but the people in that environment are what make it. As these base camps launch, as these things go forward, you're not going to join those things because of the program. You're going to walk with the people that are in that program. There's a mental shift. It's how we get up the summit. Let's talk about multiplication. Now, first of all, this spring, I can't wait because my wife and I are going to launch a new project at our farm, our quote-unquote hobby farm. We're going to try and raise some bees. And it's a little nerve-wracking because it's complicated, and I'm sort of definitely afraid of bees. But you get a queen, and if you have more than one queen, you can have more than one hive. And the more queens you have, the more hives you get. Because multiplication, it's a lot like, do we want just a bunch of worker bees, or do we want queens? What's going to be successful when you're going to be a beekeeper? You have to have queens. And the more queens you have, the more hives you can house. Does that make sense? So there's a difference when it comes to multiplication versus addition. Addition is like just adding to the worker bees, but multiplication is training up the queens. Does that make sense? Because if you get a queen, there's a multiplicative effect that happens versus just an addition of another worker bee. I think on a calculator, now if you were like me, you had a TI-85 graphing calculator. Does anyone remember that calculator that they had to buy in high school that was like $130 or higher? How much was that stupid thing? It was expensive. Some of you online are laughing and you're nodding. You had the TI, you're probably watching on your old modded TI-85. This calculator had a graphing and and it had all the functions. I never really knew how to do most of them. It was a fancy calculator I had to buy. But in the kingdom of God, do you know what the most important, you could say, exponent is? It's not addition. It's not more worker bees. It's multiplication. It's training kings and queens that reproduce. There's, again, a mental shift. So let's talk a little bit about training and not just teaching. Remember, Jesus was a teacher and a trainer. He was both. And a lot of times we will get stuck as a church if that's all we're doing is consuming teaching. It's almost overwhelming. People ask me all the time, hey, how do you invest your time in following the Lord? Well, my Bible reading. Do you know I go for quality, not quantity? Sometimes I sit on a word or a phrase or a set of verses for a month, and I go back to it, and I go back to it, and I go back to it. It might not be a chapter or a whole book because there are depths there, because I have to train myself until I get it before I move on. And I think sometimes we get a Sunday service, and we come together, and we teach, and then you come back, and we teach something else, and we forget, because you never master what you don't train in. You never master what you don't teach yourself. And James 1:2, what does that say? Hearers and what? Doers of the word. There's a teaching element that has to happen at Summit, but there's also a training element that has to happen here. There has to be something that we're learning and something that we're doing to learn or to master what we've learned. Jesus is a teacher and a trainer. Let's talk a little bit about all the changes. Well, first of all, let me give you another example, just another metaphor to drive this home. I want to see our church, this gathering of people that God has entrusted with, I want us to see us start thinking in the context of teaching and training. And there's a difference. I can teach you how to swim by way of a YouTube video, an iPad, a buoyancy test. Addie would definitely pass. You throw that Frenchie in the water, and there's enough fat around that structure. I think she's going to float like everything's the Dead Sea. I can teach you how to train from the sideline, or you could say the steps of a pool. But if I'm going to train you, what is that going to require? Me getting in the pool with you. And there's a difference between, we all just talk about swimming and then actually getting in the pool and training to swim. So there's a lot of changes coming. The Sunday base camps that are going to shift in May as we launch new Bible teaching on Sunday mornings. I want you to remember that phrase. Sunday mornings from 9 to 10, we have a biblical illiterate generation, but we are not going to have that at our church. We are going to have a Bible-based, we are going to have a clear understanding of the Word. We're going to grow in it. We're going to seek God in and through His Word as people. As we journey together in all the different walks, we're going to do that in a variety of different ways. But when you ask me what time church starts on May 1st, if we have a class, and if you want to teach a base camp or you want to be involved in training, because some of you are skilled in this, God has given you this spiritual gift. I've already talked to a couple of you in the lobby. It'd be amazing to see a number of different classes come to this fruition, these base camps. It's Sunday school. Do you remember Sunday school? That's what base camp is. It's just a fancy word that sounds like summit. Okay, so when you're trying to figure out what's base camp, just think Sunday school. Just think Bible teaching on Sunday mornings. Church starts at 9 o'clock on Sundays, May 1st. And there's going to be kid care, and there's going to be some amazing things. But we're going to journey together in our our teaching with one another on Sunday mornings. When we start launching Wednesday night base camps, Sunday mornings, Bible teaching, Wednesday nights, people reaching. Sunday morning, Bible teaching. Wednesday, people reaching. We're going to teach on Sundays, and we're going to train on Wednesdays. We're going to talk about it on Sundays, and we're going to do it on Wednesdays. We're going to give people the opportunity to learn new skills that they don't have on Wednesday nights. What would it look like if we had a bunch of people tutoring students in our neighborhood? What would it look like if you know how to play the piano, but on Wednesday nights you came and you taught kids in their 10-block radius how to play the piano, and they did that for 4 or 5 months, and then they had a recital here, and their parents were here as guests? What would it look like if we trained people in following Christ, trained people, and we developed them? He was teacher and a trainer. Let's keep moving. There's a couple values that we've talked about. A couple weeks ago, mission, connected gospel, kingdom imagination, people development is where we're at here today, local, global, story rhythm, and the number one. These are the values of Summit Church. And we're going to focus here on this one as way of foundation for people development. Here's where we're going before we get to our text. I want to see some things shift as a family, where we start developing people in 3 places. So if we're talking about the difference between teaching and training, and if we're going to train or develop people in 3 areas, number 1, doctrinal development. Knowing what you believe and why. What does God's word say about said issue? How do we respond as Christians through the lens of what's happening in Russia and Ukraine? Doctrinal development. Skills development. That's going to happen on Wednesdays. You know, where's Sean Colstock? Sean, there's a bunch of guys that are going through Metro Hope it's going to be hard for them to get a job, to be honest, because of their past. So we need to create a course on plumbing. And you need to help me train guys how to learn how to do basic plumbing. Easy. On Wednesday nights. Sean's like, all you got to do is just make sure the weld doesn't break. But what would it look like if we started training people rather than just teaching people? I think it would look like having a voice in this neighborhood again. And the third area is just simply reproductive development. Now, I mean by that is supernatural reproduction, not physical reproduction. Although we could have a class on that. It'll be a marriage class. Anyway, moving on. But my son Xavier turned 13, and he's slowly starting to grow to maturity. But what you need to know is adulting is one thing. Xavier learning how to do that for himself is one thing. Xavier learning how to do that for his son is something altogether different. And when I read the Great Commission, what I want to challenge you in is this. Matthew 28. This is where I'm at right here. I have not succeeded. This is in my Bible. This is in my notes. This is me. I have not succeeded until I've also taught someone else to obey the commands of Christ. I have not succeeded until I have taught someone how to obey the commands of Christ, until I've reproduced someone who reproduces. I have not succeeded in the Great Commission until I've made a disciple that makes a disciple. I have not obeyed the Great Commission. Simply by teaching, there has to be training. Now let's get to our text. I heard the cell phone. My ringtone's Dr. Dre after the Super Bowl. But let's move on. A couple things about people development. A little bit of backstory on this text. If you were a Jewish boy, specifically talking about Jewish boys, at an age of 5 to 12 years old, you would be journeying to become a man. At the age 13, you'd have a bar mitzvah. But at the age of this boy becoming a man, you would have 2 tracks. So from 5 to 12, you're journeying as a young boy, and then in a split of the road, if you will, you have the ability to go and continue in your rabbinical studies. After your bar mitzvah, you can do public worship. You could go and continue to train to be a rabbi, or you would go and do your family's business. It was like a fork in the road at that space. Does everybody understand that with me? So you got to that point as a child. And at that moment, you would send out what would be like if we would send letters to a university for acceptance. You would have to go and find a rabbi that you wanted to train under as their talmid, their student. You would look at their yoke, their interpretation of the Torah. Jesus had a yoke of the Torah. He says, my interpretation is easy. It's not necessarily easy to do. It's just simple in resolution. It's just 2 things. Love the Lord God with your whole heart. This is how it all sums up. Love your neighbor as yourself. But at this fork of the road, you'd go to a rabbi, and you'd go, Rabbi so-and-so, I want to be your talmid. I want to be your student. Do I have what it takes? And they'd look at your grade point average. They'd look at your family legacy. They'd look at what you've done, how much Torah memorization they'd have. And this rabbi would respond to you in one of 2 ways. Son, you can be my talmid. You can continue. Come be my student. Or the rabbi would say, you don't have what it takes. Go back and do your family's business. At that moment in time, you would seek a rabbi as a young Jewish boy to continue in your studies. Now, a couple things. By way of just illustration, it's like if you applied for a job and you didn't get it because you weren't qualified. You got overlooked, someone else did it. You applied for the University of North Carolina, who beat Duke, and I loved every minute of it. You applied to go to that school, and they looked at your accolades, your GPA, your references, and they said to you, you're really not UNC material. I'm sorry. You're not able to attend this school. Go somewhere else, go to do something else, but you're not coming to the University of North Carolina. Does that make sense to you? Is it clear? One thing I want you to note real quick is as a Jewish boy who goes from 5 to 12, and then at this bar mitzvah, he's now a man. Notice there is no adolescence. There's no such thing as a teenage Jewish kid who sits in his parents' basement and plays video games till they're 30. No, Xavier, in the name of Jesus, that will not be you. Don't raise your hand. Do you notice how that's different for us? But what you got to understand here is you would go and choose a rabbi. And if you had what it takes, you could go with that rabbi. If you didn't, you had to go back and do your family's business. And if your family was fishermen, guess what you went back to do? You fished. Jesus calls his first disciples in Mark 1:16 through 19. As Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, he called Simon and his brother Andrew, casting the net into the lake. Now, I think Simon was probably maybe at this point 20 or older, and the reason I say that is because there was a temple tax that cost a full shekel. I don't want to bore you. Different message, different time. Jesus told him to go fishing, took it out. None of the disciples needed the cover charge to get into the temple, only Jesus and Peter, so he was probably, two of them older than 20. Everybody else was probably junior and sophomores in high school. If you've watched The Chosen, they're not a bunch of old dudes with beards. They're juniors and seniors of high school who changed the world upside down. That's who we're talking about. That's why kids ministry matters. Different story, different time. But Jesus saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Why were they fishermen? Because they got to the point and they asked rabbis to continue in the rabbinical study, and guess what? They were overlooked and they were unqualified, and so they're fishing again. And Jesus says, "Come follow me, and I'll send you out to fish for people." At once, they left their nets and followed him. Have you ever wondered why at once they just would pick up and leave? Why would you just leave your business when this dude walks by you and says, "I'll make you fishers of men," in some weird clouded metaphor? It's because Jesus was a rabbi, and he flips the script, and he chooses them. They've been overlooked, underqualified. And Jesus chooses them and says, "No, I choose you. You don't choose me." In fact, another story about Jesus, he's the only rabbi in history that got his smicha, the word in Hebrew for authority, from God himself. The other rabbis would have to lay their hands on you in a public place, going back to Moses and Aaron, and they would have to say, "We've got smicha," and we say, "Go teach the Torah with authority." In other words, you could interpret it and apply it. If you didn't have the authority, you couldn't apply it. You could just interpret it, if you will. And Jesus was this rabbi that taught with smicha. He's baptized, and he comes out of the water, and God himself rips the heaven open. He says, "This is my son, whom all authority, whom all smicha is given." So you've got this smicha rabbi, this Jedi Knight, not a Padawan rabbi. You got the NBA, not the NCAA. You got this pro, not a minor league. You got this person who has got all this authority walking on this river, and he comes up to these two people that are now fishing back in their family's business because they've been overlooked and they're underqualified, and he says, "I choose you." Continue. When he'd gone a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat preparing their nets. What happened to James and John? Why are they fishing? Because from 5 to 12, they were training in the Torah, and they got to the spot, and they went and asked a rabbi, "Can we continue in our studies? Because we want to be a rabbi." It's the thing to be in Israel. It's not to be a fisherman. Go and do everything with God, but if you can be a rabbi, be a rabbi. That's where it's at. And they didn't. They didn't make it. They didn't get the cut. They got the letter of denial. They said, "You don't have what it takes. You can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. Your GPA isn't good. You don't have the scholarship. Your references, none of them checked out. Go back and be a fisherman. Go do that and do that for all the glory of God. But you're not going to be a rabbi, and you're not going to continue." So James and John have this rabbi that chooses them. And without delay, they left their father in the boat. "See you, Dad. Good luck. Bye." Because they got this chance, because Jesus flips the script. What am I saying? I'm saying something very clearly to you today. At Summit, I hope this is on the screen. At Summit, we will develop people in doctrine and skill who have been overlooked, rejected, seen, and accepted. We will develop people in training and teaching. Jesus chooses them because they were overlooked. So you might feel overlooked. You might feel rejected. You might feel seen. I'll tell you, in the Target Center, when you're in front of 12,000 people, you feel seen. But I feel overlooked. I felt rejected. We all have. But Jesus flips the script and he chooses you. He chooses you to follow him. And he develops people. He teaches them and trains them, and that's what we're going to do. at Summit. Quick final story as we go, and we'll make this brief. Katie, you don't have to come to the piano. We'll just dismiss today because of all the moving parts, and Dale was up here for at least 40 minutes. What you need to know, and just put this back on put that last one at Summit, take a picture of that with your phone real quick. That's going to be on a poster in the lobby here. Just take a picture of that, because you need to remember we're going to do our best to do what Jesus does and flip the script in people's lives. Reggie, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Overlooked, rejected. Pastor Bill, you've been seen and accepted. I'm talking to you. Jesus, choose you. We're going to do this as a family, but we are going to develop people in those three areas, because he flips the script, so why not us? What you need to know about Addie, we call her Fatty. Fataline, it's her full French name. She is the sweetest dog we've ever had. She's amazing with the kids. She's turned out to be just an absolute joy to our family. She doesn't shed much. She's got gas once in a while, but that's the cat food. That's the kids' fault. But what you need to know, I'm talking to you, Xavier, but what you need to know about Addie, church, is this. Danielle and I, on one of our family trips, we went back to Round Rock, and we were looking, on South Dakota, Round Rock Bulldogs. I'm moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I'm trying to fit this in. And to be honest with you, church, I got 2.5 hours maybe of sleep with a hotel and a plane, okay? So I'm literally running on Gideon juice up here, which is coffee. That's what Dale runs on. No, do you even like coffee, Dale? I thought so. I felt like that was a problem in your life, that you were addicted, and we need to talk about that, and your illegal activity with the Gideons as well. But church, what you need to know about Addie is we actually were thinking about getting another Frenchie. And a number of Addie's brother and sisters from this litter got weird diseases. Weren't able to continue as puppies, if you will. But Addie was a runt. Addie was the smallest one of the entire litter. Now, arguably, maybe the largest now, but she was the smallest one. And my wife and I got her after an insurance deal on one of our vans. Danielle wanted a puppy, and I said, we can't get a puppy. A French Bulldog's $2,500. That's what they cost to get a purebred French Bulldog. It's a lot of money for a dog. Well, I said, you just ask that God would make a way. We're at 4th of July in Watertown, South Dakota, and this person sideswipes our black van that we were traveling in as a ministry at that time, and literally escapes. The manager's running out. We have to stay there and file a police report because this woman was in a rental car shoplifting, fleeing the scene. Come to find out, the rental company, Avis, heard about this and immediately said, go get your van estimate and get it fixed. We'll send you a check tomorrow. Rental companies want nothing to do with criminals. So we file the paperwork. I got a guy, writes up an estimate. And then we get this check in the mail. And I go over to the shop, and I'm like, I can live with this, paint this, let that hang off. We'll just cut that back part off. I go to Kansas City at a student event at a church called Antioch, and I'm preaching. And I told Danielle, hey, listen to me, this is amazing. She goes, yeah, I went and picked up the van. I think we cleared about $2,500, Danielle. And she's like, that's amazing. And she goes, I bought a dog. So I said, you did what? Well, we fixed the van. God provided a way for us to get a French Bulldog. I put a non-refundable deposit on one of the puppies. And I, by the way, petitioned for the dog's name to be Avis. But it ended up being Adeline. And I tell you this long story about our family because we journeyed through this, and we show up late to the game. Everybody got their pick of the litters, and there's a few dogs left, and one of them happens to be this little runt who was overlooked and underqualified. And she's the best dog we've ever had. And that's what Jesus does to us. When we're overlooked and underqualified, you might just be the best version of you in him. And I see that. I'm stupid enough to believe that he sees it too. That's what we're going to do. So do it with me, because I can't do it alone. But we can do it together. God, I thank you for these people. I thank you for this church. Thank you for this moment of history where we get to teach and train and all the shifting and everything that's there, making space for people to be developed who are overlooked and underqualified, and some have been seen and are qualified. Pray, Lord, that you would unite all of us to move forward as we bring light to St. Paul. Let people come into this church and be known, find hope, love our city together. God, let us move to the places where we're truly discipling people. We're actively delivering hope to this city and to this world, and we're loving this place together that you've positioned us for such a time as this. Thanks for choosing us. Thanks for flipping the script. We all need it. In Jesus' name. Everybody says, Addie. Everybody said Addie. That was a joke. All right, love you all. Thank you for being here. Next week, we are so excited. What time's church start? 9 o'clock. Well, 9 o'clock if you're going to come to base camp, but church is going to start at 10:30. But if you come early at 10, you might just get some fellowship time. We'll see you then.